Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Leeson here at today's top stories. The government says it will consider whether the BBC needs more reform following the results of an inquiry into a 1995 interview with Princess Diana. The European Parliament decides to freeze the ratification of an investment agreement with China, and the MI5 chief accuses Facebook of giving a free pass to terrorists with its end-to-end encryption plans. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has expressed his concern over the findings of an inquiry into the BBC's 1995 interview with Princess Diana.
Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden says the government will consider whether further reform of governance at the publicly funded BBC is needed. It follows an inquiry on Thursday that criticised the BBC for its 1995 interview with Princess Diana. Dowden wrote on Twitter, "Lord Dyson's report reveals damning failings at the heart of the BBC. He says the government will consider the matter in the mid-term charter review next spring." Prime Minister Boris Johnson expressed his concerns over the findings of the inquiry while visiting Royal Navy aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth.
I hope very much that the BBC will be taking every possible step to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again.
The inquiry found that BBC journalist Martin Bashir used deceit to win a sensational 1995 interview with Princess Diana. Bashir showed fake documents to her brother Charles Spencer, who introduced the pair. Prince William on Thursday issued a strongly worded statement criticising the BBC.
But what saddens me most is that if the BBC had properly investigated the complaints and concerns first raised in 1995, my mother would have known that she had been deceived. She was failed not just by a rogue reporter, but by leaders at the BBC who looked the other way rather than asking the tough questions.
The BBC has written to Prince William to apologise. Last week, the BBC announced that Bashir was leaving his current job as religious affairs editor because of ill health. Bashir has apologised over the report's findings.
The European Parliament decided to freeze the ratification of a major investment agreement with China. Lawmakers said Beijing first needs to lift sanctions it has issued on EU politicians.
EU lawmakers said they refused to ratify the bloc's investment pact with China. Earlier this year, the EU imposed sanctions on Chinese officials responsible for human rights abuses against the Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang region. Beijing retaliated by sanctioning several European entities and politicians, including 5 members of the European Parliament. In a resolution adopted on Thursday, EU lawmakers condemned Beijing's sanctions in the strongest possible terms, and they voted with an overwhelming majority to freeze the ratification process of the EU-China Investment Agreement, which was reached last December after 7 years of negotiations. Lawmakers said that the suspension will remain as long as the regime's sanctions stay in place. After the vote, one European lawmaker said the China deal is definitely in the freezer. China miscalculated and shot themselves in the foot. Reinhard Bütikofer is one of the MEPs sanctioned by the Chinese regime. Lawmakers also advised the EU Commission that Parliament will consider the human rights situation in China, including in Hong Kong, when deciding whether to endorse the agreement.
The head of MI5 has accused Facebook of giving a free pass to terrorists with its plans for end-to-end encryption. Kevin McCallum says Facebook's plans will impede the security service's ability to disrupt attacks. In an interview with Times Radio, McCallum says they are not seeking to build a surveillance state with a camera in everyone's living room. But on some rare occasions, they need access to the content of messages exchanged by dangerous suspects. McCallum says Facebook's encryption is in effect giving terrorists or people organizing child sexual abuse online a free pass, as they know nobody can look into what they are doing. And in other news, new cases of the Indian variant of COVID-19 increased by more than 2,000 in a week. But data shows they are clustered in 3 northwest England hotspots.
Official figures suggest the Indian variant may not be spreading as quickly as feared. Infection rates are going up in only 3 out of 15 hotspots in England. Public Health England says the latest weekly data shows 3,424 cases of the Indian variant. That's an increase of over 2,100 on the previous week. Most cases were concentrated in the northwest and London, but Public Health England says it is seeing clusters of cases across the country. Bolton is the worst hit area, with 923 Indian variant cases on the week up to May 15th. That's almost double the previous week. Blackburn with Darwen is the hotspot, with the second highest number of cases at 217, up by 50% on the previous week. Bedford has 220 Indian variant cases, up 83% on the previous week. In areas outside these 3 hotspots, increases of new infections were clearly well below these levels. For example, London's hotspot is Hounslow, with 153 cases by May 15th, but that's up less than 30% on the week before. NHS Test and Trace says 15,200 people in England tested positive for COVID-19 in the week to May 12. That is 5% more than the previous week and the first 7-day increase since early January.
Nearly 4,400 people were prosecuted last year for breaking COVID-19 laws. That's according to the Ministry of Justice's quarterly statistics. Among them, over 3,500 were convicted, with most offences related to flouting lockdown rules. The vast majority of these cases resulted in a fine at an average of £374. 3 people were sentenced to do community service and 1 person was jailed for 6 months. New data suggests the nation's financial mood is getting brighter. A consumer confidence index says we are now at pre-lockdown levels. NTD's Patrick Hayden breaks it down.
Consumer price confidence has bounced back to its pre-pandemic level. A long-running survey says the easing of restrictions is boosting the financial mood of the nation. GfK's Consumer Confidence Index jumped 6 points to -9 in May. The uptick is driven by continued optimism around personal finances. It's now 19 points higher than the same period last year. Confidence in the UK economy over the next 12 months has jumped 15 points this month. That's a 48-point increase from January. GfK's Client Strategy Director Joe Stanton says these findings reflect April's feel-good reopening of outdoor pubs, shops, gyms and hairdressers, combined with continuing vaccination success. He says only more lockdowns can dampen this solid momentum. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
Pubs and restaurants experienced a surge in sales this week after customers were allowed to eat and drink inside. Customers were allowed to eat inside restaurants for the first time this year on Monday. Sales were up by a quarter compared to pre-pandemic levels. Food sales were up almost 30% and drink sales were up more than 21% compared to the same time in 2019. That's according to data from research consultancy CGA. In April, only about a third of licensed premises could trade. Hospitality groups said the coming months are critical. And in other news, good news for football fans. Ticket holders for Euro 2020 matches in St. Petersburg don't need a visa to travel there.
Russia will allow football fans to enter the country for the upcoming UEFA Euro 2020 matches in St. Petersburg. The local organising committee said on Thursday that ticket holders don't need a visa to attend the matches. But all participants still need to test negative for COVID-19 and comply with safety rules. Russia is closed to citizens of most countries because of pandemic restrictions issued last spring. St. Petersburg said it will fill its stadium to 50% capacity. It's set to host 7 matches, including a quarter-final. UEFA officials postponed Euro 2020 by a year because of the pandemic. 24 teams will square off in 11 cities across Europe, including at Wembley Stadium in London and Hampden Park in Glasgow. Dublin was dropped last month because it couldn't guarantee the presence of fans at matches. At least 25% of stadium capacity is set to be available for all games. Euro 2020 will kick off in Rome on the 11th of June with Italy versus Turkey.
The Sunday Times Rich List is out, and it shows that the fortunes of Britain's wealthiest increased during the pandemic. UK billionaires have seen their fortunes soar by more than a fifth as they shook off lockdown disruption. The list revealed that there are now a record 171 billionaires in the UK. Sir Leonard Blavatnik tops the list with £23 billion. His fortune surged more than £7 billion. Last year's richest person, Sir James Dyson, dropped to 4th position, although his wealth still increased by £100 million. Wealth among billionaires increased by 22% over the year. It rose by £107 billion to nearly £600 billion. Property investors David and Simon Rubin took 2nd position with nearly £21.5 billion. And in other news, the UK's big supermarkets now have a challenge to their dominance. Startup companies that promise to deliver grocery orders within 15 minutes.
The bell is ringing. That means a new order. In a railway arch in South London, a team of wheezy pickers and packers are in a race against time. They need to get fresh food to the door of a customer within 15 minutes of their order being placed.
The typical basket on Wheezy is actually many times larger than a typical convenience basket. And part of the reason for that is because we take the products to your house, so we save you the hassle of having to carry them.
Dan says half of the average basket is fresh products, and there is no typical Wheezy customer. They are from all age groups, from people in their 20s up to their 80s. 32-year-old finance worker Alistair Dean is one of Wheezy's regular customers. He and his girlfriend are time-poor professionals.
In the sort of COVID world of everything sort of happening from home and being delivered, and it sort of all fits in nicely, and it means we don't have to leave our house to work, shop, or do anything. We can be sort of hermits the rest of our lives, so that's all wonderful.
In central London, residents have been bombarded with offers from at least 4 new rapid services. Wheezy, like its London rivals Getir, Dija and Gorillas, stocks goods from major suppliers and local producers at prices similar to supermarket convenience shops.
The big challenge that they're facing is around profitability. And I think in order for this model to be viable, they need to scale. And there are a lot of horses in this race at the moment.
Rapid delivery providers usually offer up to 2,000 products, while a supermarket website offers up to 50,000.
So it's a very different offering altogether, and I don't think they will ever replace the weekly food shop. It's very much complementary.
The principle of rapid delivery companies like Wheezy is to provide an on-demand service without being too expensive. But Wheezy acknowledges to make a profit will take time.
Still to come, Iran hopes to reach a nuclear deal with Britain, France, Germany, China and Russia. But US lawmakers are voicing concern. That and more when we return.